The Los Angeles Rams found arguably the greatest steal of the 2017 NFL Draft in the third round at pick 69. The 2017 Rams selection has had an amazing start to his career, gathering 6,700 yards and 47 touchdowns to date, while also being named the 2017 Offensive Player of the Year in his 7-year career to this point. To learn more about Kupp's story, we need to know about his family. Born into a football family, the son of NFL quarterback and grandson of a Saints offensive lineman Hall of Famer, he was born to play football. An absolute monster at Eastern Washington University, he won Scout Team Player of the Year in his true freshman season, and in his junior season won the Walter Payton Award, which is the FCS equivalent of the Heisman, only the second wide receiver to ever win the award. Despite all of his success in college, he was viewed as the 8th best wide receiver in the draft by most, except for notably Steve Smith Sr., who named him as the best wide receiver in this draft class. But let's go over the 6 players who were drafted before him. The first wide receiver that was taken off the board was Cory Davis, with the 5th pick of this draft. He was a product of Western Michigan, where he had an outstanding career, breaking the D1 record for receiving yards in a career with over 5,300 yards and 52 touchdowns through his 4-year career, including a breakout 1,500-yard and 19 touchdown senior season. Unfortunately, he was unable to perform in the pre-draft workouts due to an injury. However, he was still viewed as a top prospect after scoring an above-average 31 on the Wonderlic test. Unfortunately, he's undoubtedly been a bust after 6 seasons in the NFL, failing to break 1,000 yards once and dealing with injuries throughout his career. He announced retirement in 2023 just before the start of his age 28 season. The next wide receiver that was taken off the board was Mike Williams, a 4-star recruit out of high school who committed to play at Clemson. As a true freshman, he played in every game, making 3 starts, putting up 20 receptions on over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. His sophomore season, he improved that number by getting 57 receptions on over 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the first game of his junior season ended in disaster, as on the first drive of the play, he collided with the goalpost as he was catching a touchdown pass, which broke a bone in his neck, which held him out for the rest of the year. In his comeback redshirt junior year, however, he led the team in all receiving stats, putting up just under 100 receptions with 1,360 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. Hours after an amazing national championship win over Alabama, Williams announced that he would forgo his senior season and enter the draft. Since college, Williams has had his ups and his downs, but he's been great when he was healthy, being a respectable wide receiver number 2 for the Los Angeles Chargers. With 2,000-yard seasons under his belt and nearly 5,000 receiving yards through the 7 years he's played, he's turning into a very good selection. However, he's not quite the star that Cooper Kupp is. The third wide receiver off the board was John Ross, the record-breaking 40-yard dash holder. He was taken with the 9th overall selection by the Bengals. The product out of Washington University was a track star in high school while also being a two-way football star. Regarded as a 4-star recruit, 49th ranked in California, he committed to play for Washington University. He started his career in college as both a two-way player, getting time in at wide receiver and cornerback. However, after tearing his ACL in the spring of 2015, he was forced to sit out his junior year, being redshirted. After returning from the injury, however, he would put up a career-best line of 81 receptions with over 1,100 yards and 17 touchdowns. Following the season, he decided to skip his senior season and go straight to the NFL draft. Taking place in the NFL Combine, John Ross proceeded to break Chris Johnson's record of a 4.24 40-yard dash by putting up a 4.22 on the 40, which was absolutely insane. However, he pulled his hamstring while competing this drill, which forced him to be not quite to the top of his ability going forward in the agility drills. And following a pro day, he had to have surgery to repair a torn labrum in his shoulder. Yet, he was still a top 3 wide receiver prospect, according to almost every pro site. Ross has had an injury-riddled career, unable to play more than 13 games once in his career, and has yet to gather 1,000 yards in his 5 combined seasons, which has not helped his case in getting a second contract. Following a brief stint with the New York Giants and signing with the Chiefs, John Ross announced his retirement from football on July 26th of 2023, ending his 5-year career as undoubtedly one of the biggest busts in Bengals history. The fourth wide receiver taken was Zay Jones, the son of former NFL player Robert Jones. A product of Eastern Carolina University, Zay Jones absolutely balled out in all 4 years of college, being named as college's best wide receiver in his senior season after gathering 158 receptions on 1,750 yards and 8 touchdowns. He went on to lead all wide receivers in the Senior Bowl with 6 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown. At 6 feet tall and running a 4.45 40-yard dash, he was viewed as a second-round selection in the top 5 wide receivers of this draft class. Jones has struggled to adjust to the NFL. However, since his move to the Jaguars in 2022, he's been looking better, so it will be interesting to see how the remainder of his career plays out. Curtis Samuel was the 5th wide receiver taken off of this board. The 2013 New York Gatorade Player of the Year was a 4-star recruit that committed to Ohio State. Curtis was a dual-threat wide receiver, being the only player in Ohio State history to gather over 1,000 rushing and receiving yards. In his 3 years as a Buckeye, he accumulated 2,500 combined yards with 24 combined touchdowns. Curtis Samuel's been an average wide receiver in the league, gaining 2,700 yards to date, with 18 touchdowns through the air, as well as an extra 700 yards on the ground, with 6 touchdowns. With a new situation in Washington, hopefully Curtis can turn it around and break out, but it's not looking great for the New York-born wide receiver. The final wide receiver we're covering in this video is Juju SmithSchuster, a 5-star recruit out of high school who was the second best wide receiver in his class. Juju would go on to commit at USC under then head coach Steve Sarkisian, and he would go on to play 3 seasons, gaining 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns before foregoing his senior season in favor of the NFL draft. Despite being the 4th best wide receiver in the draft according to Sports Illustrated and ESPN, only the Cowboys showed heavy interest coming into the draft. Despite this, the Steelers selected him at 62nd overall in the 2nd round as the youngest player selected in the entire draft. Juju would go on to break several NFL records, however, including the fastest player to ever break 2,500 yards. Juju is a player who's had his ups and downs, dealing with several injuries and some perceived off-the-field issues. However, his talent can't be denied, breaking 1,400 yards in his sophomore season and nearly gaining 1,000 in 2022 in only 14 games started and 16 played. I hope he's able to get back to his incredibly skilled and fun-to-watch wide receiver he was early in his career, but the run-focused Patriots offense are making things look rather bleak for Juju's future in the NFL. And that caps off the recap of the 6 wide receivers selected before Cooper Kupp. Drop a like and follow for more and any recommendations on videos you'd like to see next.